There we go. A little bit about me on a very big screen. I have been involved with nonprofits, government entities, all the fun things that get involved with grant funding since about 2010 and ranged anywhere from being a volunteer who emptied trash cans to board member to an executive director. So a little bit of everything thrown in there. But here's what we're really to talk about. You've got visions, otherwise you don't get involved in nonprofits and seeking grants and all of those pieces. But in case no one told you, vision costs money, which is a buzzkill. Finding the money is an even bigger buzzkill. But it's a sad reality. Most nonprofits don't have a lot of cash to fund these visions, and they start seeking elsewhere. And especially on the nonprofit side, their automatic magic solution is, we're going to get a grant for that. Reality is you're not. But there's reasons why you may not, and there's ways you can help protect yourself so that you show up more favorably when your application is in front of your reviewers. These are a few of my favorite things when it comes to finding the grants and where they exist. Of course, foundations, community foundations, private foundations, all of those pieces. Other nonprofits, like United Way and so forth, will offer grants to organizations. There are larger companies that create their own foundational grant programs. Want to say Nature Valley and Newman Foundation are some of the large companies you can look at. Honestly, I tell people, I'm like, start looking at the companies that align their values with your organization, your mission, your cause. They might have private ones that they kind of fund through outside of what's listed as sponsorship dollars. Government agencies are another big one that everybody thinks of when they think grants. They're like, ooh, I can apply to the state. I can apply to the federal government, etc. You might. They require a lot of paperwork, though. Just warning you ahead of time, if you're walking out of an application with less than 50 pages, probably didn't do enough when it's the government ones. Other big ones to check out, state representatives. So in Pennsylvania, I know a lot of the representatives put together this wonderful funding booklet that has grant opportunities. Digital copies used to always pre-pandemic exist, hard copies. I think those are making a way back, but checking with your state reps, also signing up for their newsletters. I know in Maryland, a couple of the representatives are wonderful about sending out on Sundays for some reason, and at 11 o'clock at night, emails that will tell you their upcoming funding cycles or grant opportunities that they know exist, as well as checking out your state pages. A lot of the states have buried within grant funding opportunities, and at least in Pennsylvania, they're really kind about the fact they like keywords, and if you type in things that you are looking for, so if you're looking for child programming, criminal justice, you can type in keywords and you get grants sent to you as they open for funding cycles. It's amazing. I always love when the information comes to me as opposed to me having to go out and search for it, because you're going to do enough other stuff in the end for these. So why not have it a little easier on yourself? The other one I love is GuideStar. You can sign up for a free profile. You have a nonprofit, please make sure you have it registered on GuideStar as well. GuideStar is an amazing tool and it's free. And for one reason that I love it is this. It tells you lots of the foundational grants that people look for. So foundations are a wonderful key, because if you aren't aware of this, operating funds for a nonprofit and for just general pay the staff because they like money as well are hard to find. Usually foundations are the ones that kind of kick in that cash. And I'll butcher what page it's on, so I'm going to leave that to the CPAs and the financial folks. But the 990s that exist on profiles in GuideStar will tell you two important things. One, that first long block, there's a box they check that says if they take solicitations for funding or not. So you know whether or not you can cold call them to fund your program, to fund your organization, or if it won't be received well. They will also tell you a list of what the organization funds, if it was that beautiful word, operational funding, how much they gave in operational funding. Love those because, as I said, this is one of the hardest things I always get asked, especially from the nonprofits. How do we pay our people? So that's what you check out. And you can, like I said, you can see from there, this organization, they were funding a little bit of everything, but maybe it's one that only focuses on the healthcare side. You can you certainly see what you're up against. As well as if you're already getting funding from a foundation, I tell my clients, check these out, see what they're paying the other guys, because you might be getting undercut. For example, I have one client I was working with. They get funding from an organization to pay for their nurse. Now, they are a healthcare facility. This nurse is critical to their program. And when I say critical, I mean if she isn't there, they no longer have an organization they can run because she signs all of the medical stuff. She also hadn't had a raise in like 5 years, which, in case you haven't seen, healthcare's a hot biz right now, and you want them to be paid well because you don't want to look for a new person. So I was talking with the executive director, and she's like, well, we don't ask for more money because we're afraid if we ask for more, they're going to think we're greedy and that we don't respect what they're giving us. I said, okay. Called the funding agency. You know what the funding agency said? Kind of shocked they ain't asked for more money before now. And really, that's all they're paying this lady? I said, I know. She's got multiple letters after her name. She is a godsend, and she's keeping that place afloat. They were like, yeah, how about you throw an extra $10,000 on your request? Want to guess what their award letter says this year? An extra $10,000 to give their person a raise. They're thrilled by that. Part of it began with me looking and saying, you sold yourself short. They're paying out a lot more cash to other places. The other nice thing on these 990s, they list the higher decision makers in a foundation. You can find out who key decision makers are that are going to review your requests. You might see a friend or a colleague or someone you went to high school with, random person on your kid's baseball team, whatever it is, that could give you some extra oomph to say, that's a good organization. We should help fund that one. So I highly recommend taking peeks at those and kind of reviewing all of it. So now, the next thing, you've got the ideas. So it's a problem, right? What? Totally give me cash because I have an amazing idea that will change the world, and it doesn't work that way. So what are some of the hurdles you're going to come up against as you start moving from the vision element to the payoff element? Well, some of them can fall under an unclear project. You have an amazing idea. You live every day in your organization. You understand when you say XYZ equals ABC. I have no clue what C was. I have no clue what Z was. I have no clue what any of it is. So you need to be able to transfer your idea from what you know to what everybody around you knows. Best thing I can suggest as you start writing grants, start putting together your ideas. Everybody has that friend that they know around the holidays that will tell you when you've had too many cookies, that will be blunt and honest with you. Have them review your grant. Have them read your project. They will tell you if it makes sense to the rest of the world. Hopefully it does, but if it does not, they will tell you the questions that nobody else is asking in your organization because they all live in the same world you do. So make sure of that. Another important thing I see a lot of folks not realize, there may be a matching requirement that you need to provide. Now, matching does not always mean cash in hand. Matching could mean I applied to another organization and I'm waiting for them to tell me yes too. But if you say yes and they say yes, we have funding. So, use an example. There is a Maryland state program I applied for one of my municipality clients for. It only funds 25% of a project. So they were like, well, okay, maybe it'll be worth it, maybe it won't. What do you think? I said, well, first criteria when you start looking under here, it says you have to have a partner government organization. We had another organization already give you cash, so you just hit the big hurdle because the federal government's giving you cash, so now the state will. We've hit the matching part. We've done the hard work, put in the application. So making sure you have those criteria are lined up. The other one, missing deadlines. That's a key one. Look down through the full application before you apply. Make sure you can hit all the dates, all the deadlines. Because if you miss them, they're happy to roll on to the next person and give them your cash. So I had one client that swore up and down they were awarded stuff. They knew they got the money. It was declared in their county's minutes that that cash was coming to them. We dug a little further. They missed the deadline to turn in the application. All they did was get the letter of intent approved. That is important. Follow the deadlines. We want our money. The other challenge, the other two piggyback off of each other. You have no leader or you have too many leaders. Who's heard the too many cooks in the kitchen phrase? That'll happen to your project if you have too many point people or if you have no point person to drive the mission. So identify when you create your plan, who's taking care of what? Who is executing what? Because you're going to want to add that into your grant application. Some grants like to see who's in charge, how long they've been in charge, what their expertise is in being in charge, and that helps you elevate amongst the pack. So make sure you identify those. It also keeps folks from interjecting when they shouldn't be interjecting. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen a good-hearted volunteer who knows the person that's going to do it, and they went and got in the ear and confused everybody. Because suddenly they thought they were in charge instead of the contact. Just turns into a nightmare. So identify and drill it into everybody's head. So-and-so is in charge of this. Other things you're going to need, if you are not already clear on, for your grant applications. This is where we start racking up those 50-some pages for the government ones especially. Your plan. Ideas are great. Plans exist on paper, and plans explain to the rest of the world what the idea is and how it's going to be executed. For example, if you're building a building, you probably would have engineering designs to show how the building is going to turn from the blank slate to the thing you can walk into. Funding agencies are going to want to know how that happens. Renderings, photos, etc. Just to give you an example. So I manage a project for some towns that has facade grants for their residents. It opened yesterday. I always love when this comes around because it gives me insight to what the public thinks whenever they see grants come about. I require 4 things: a completed application, photos of what this place looks like and why I need to give you money to fix it, how much it's going to cost to fix said thing, and that you sign the agreement that you will not let it fall apart after I give you money for a certain period of time. I had one show up in my email yesterday, and I can tell from the handwriting, and I'm not stereotyping, I swear, but she had the same handwriting as my grandmother, so I'm guessing it's an older person. Sorry to stereotype, but y'all have beautiful cursive writing, and I'm jealous of it because my kids can barely function printing right now. I'm really upset they took that out of school. But you want to know what she sent? I need money for my house. My house needs fixed up. I have no clue what her house looks like. I have no clue what she needs done. I have no clue how much it's going to cost. I have no clue who's going to do this work. Nothing. I was like, okay, well, I would love to help you out. Could you send me photos of what the house looks like? Honey, you drive down this street and you turn this way and you can just see my front porch. It's falling apart. I'm like, okay, I'm in Greencastle. You're in Maryland. Not driving down there to see your house. That's how you get in trouble with the police. Take photos. Tried to explain. I have no clue. I really want to help her. I can't. I can't even imagine which one it is for the houses. So execute your plan. I'm going to drill that in before it's all said and done. And give me the context on how I know you need this plan executed. Your 990s. Not only are you snooping everybody else's, you submit for a grant, we want to snoop yours. We want to know where your funding is going to. Is it going to operations? Is it going to programming? Whatnot. We also will request your audits in grant applications. So make sure you've got somebody doing a beautiful job on your audits. These guys are amazing. I love it. I never have questions for their audits, especially the government ones. They really love to see those. Support letters. Support letters can come in many forms. Board members, representatives of your organization, people who have gone through some of your programming, community support. It just kind of depends. I know with a lot of the government ones, there may be a public feedback period where they want to know, does the public really want you to use their money for this? So you may be required to get letters from the public. So keeping those in mind, representatives will always give you a letter. You just have to tell them what it needs to say. Keep that in mind too. So that's where you put in all the wonderful things you do. Who else gives you money for your funding sources? Again, I talked about some have matching requirements. Some state money doesn't play with other state money. Some federal things don't play with state things. So they want to know not only who's giving you money for this program, this idea, who gives money to your overall, just in case. So you want to look into those pieces and check things out. And then you'll also need to include copies of your IRS determination, your articles of incorporation, etc. Don't lose those. You will need to copy them off and ship them to multiple places over the course of your organization existing. I had one that misplaced them one time, and let me tell you, we found the ugliest scanned copy of it that you could barely even tell. I saw the words IRS. That's about it that existed. They still accept those, but just keep cleaner copies because it was hard explaining why it looks so ugly. But these will all go into your grant packet. These will be outside of just explaining what the project is, what the piece is, who's running the show, and so forth. So this is the really big part that goes into your applications. These are my sweet 16 of how I get my money. These are what hopefully will help you get your money. The first one is always the worst one. You're more likely to get grants if you're an established organization. It is the dirty truth. It is the heartbreaking truth. And I can't tell you how many times I see a startup, especially a startup nonprofit, that says, I'm going to get grants, I'm going to take on the world. I'm going to go, no, you're not. And they're like, yes, we are. I'm like, no, because people give money to people who get money. If you are not currently getting money, they will not give you the money. If you're newer, I'm sorry, I may have just ruined your day. Thankfully, it's a dreary day, so it's not like I've just ruined sunshine. Number 2, operating grants are harder to get. That's that foundation part. I will drill that in so often. There is a hack to your operating funds, though, that a lot leave on the table and do not take advantage of. If you are applying for a grant that is program specific, include in there how many man hours your staff is spending on this. If your staff is spending 20 hours a week for the next 6 weeks of their 40-hour work week, you better include 20 hours a week of their time into that programming request. Most grants will have a built-in portion of administrative costs. It can range anywhere from 1% all the way up to 10%. And so that is how you get some of your cash back to pay for your people without having to chase down the elusive unicorns of grants that come to operating the organization. So calculate your time. That will also help make your grant application stronger because it goes back to what we talked about earlier. Who's in charge? Who's making the dream happen? So add those in. If you have the government ones, those are really good because they also help to pay for consultants. You may have to commit the matching funds. Again, can't stress that enough. Make sure what you have to line up for your dollars coming in. Next one's my favorite. Follow what they're giving you money for. I had one of my clients, God love him, almost lost $500,000. Yes, you heard me right, $500,000. Why? They didn't like the idea that was funded. It's really that simple. And they didn't like the idea because they didn't like the last group that was in charge of the program. The money was awarded for a playground. The money was going to be used for certain playground equipment. The new committee did not like what type of playground they were going to put in. So they decided they were going to go, and they were just going to go buy new equipment. Volunteers went out, they got the quotes for the equipment, they got the plans for the equipment. They had all but signed on the dotted line for said equipment. I start working with them. They're like, yeah, so we're in the middle of this. You'll have this grant to execute here in a couple weeks. Once the equipment gets delivered, we just got to sign this, get it approved. I'm looking at it, it's like, that's not what you're getting money for. This says it's for a tot lot. That says it's for an inclusive playground. I've had kids. I know what tots are and I know what the inclusive goes to. Those aren't the same thing. They were like, oh, well, this is what they want to do now. I said, did anybody tell the funding agency? Well, no. We're calling the funding agency. We're going to talk to them real quick. Pull it up on speakerphone because I want the decision makers to hear this. First words out of the funding agency's mouth. Give me my money back. I said, oh, no. We still want to do a playground. Yeah, but I gave you money for this. Talking them off the ledge because this wasn't the first time that organization pulled this stunt. They got to keep the money with a whole bunch of new paperwork to approve the new equipment that's going to be installed. So, follow the approved scope of work because I can tell you right now, it has put that organization on a blacklist with that funding agency. They don't get money this year. They've been told they're in timeout. So, I'm happy because it gets me a chance to straighten out their stuff. But yeah, so we don't want to make our funding agencies mad. Pay attention to the timeline you have to spend your funds. I love the state of Maryland because they give a lot of really good grants. They are horrible about paying for their grants sometimes. One of the programs I manage, they are just now sending out the checks for FY23. If you're familiar with municipal stuff, FY23 ends in like 6 weeks. I'm like, y'all, really? And they're like, yeah, The year before that, they had a different deadline. The year before that, there was a different deadline. I'm like, I think somebody throws darts at the walls when they cut checks for their stuff. And it screws up the programming funding because now these folks have to split half of it between their FY23 and their FY24 that they weren't anticipating. So pay attention to the timeline on when you're getting the money and how long you get to spend it. Review the reporting guidelines. If they give you the money, they can take away the money. They can request the money back. They are not shy about it if you miss deadlines. So make sure you know when you need to tell them things. Some bigger ones have check-in moments. If one, they ask every month for a report. It's ridiculous. But it's a big check, so we're okay with telling them every month, copy, send, because it doesn't have too much activity. But it's just that simple. Read if your grant is an advance or reimbursement. You may need to have cash on hand to pay for everything, and then they send you the check once you show it's done. So that's important. There may be a long approval period, especially for the government-related ones. It can take up to a year, 12 months. They move at their own pace, snail's pace. Snails may win the race pace. Pay attention, because if you need something to keep the lights on tomorrow, the one that gets awarded next year is probably not for you. Make sure you proofread your things. That's where that holiday friend comes in. They'll catch your mistakes. They'll let you know. Review commitments before you apply. There tends to sometimes be fun things that grant funding agencies like to slip in. For example, I had one. It was a small award. It was only like $900-ish. It also required the awardee to sign up for a program that had to be executed within 6 weeks that you got the check. Okay, that's a new piece of work that we're putting on somebody's desk to execute. So pay attention. Do your research. Of course, you're going to tell us why the program is amazing for your organization. How's it amazing for the committee or the community? How is it going to change my life? Tell me those things. Give me the data. Give me the stats. Give me all the nerd out stuff that you're going to want to say. This justifies my passion. This justifies my reason. Never, ever, ever, ever copy and send grant applications from year to year, even if they give you the same amount, even if it's for the same thing. Because I can guarantee demographics may have changed in your community, need may have changed in your community. I should see at least a little bit of change up in what you're telling me you need to do. So, I had one gentleman, that's what he told me. That's how he got his awards. Just take 5 minutes to make this grant. It's like, 5 minutes? Yeah, you just change the dates on there and we just send it in like that. I'm like, you what? He's like, yeah. All right, fine. I sent in his application as it was. I also wrote my own and put it in, because you can apply sometimes. Some programs will take 2 applications from you. Guess who got cash? And guess who got a letter back on there saying, thank you for finally sending a updated reason we need to give you money. And the cash was more. So, we get tired of reading the same things all the time. Don't send us the same things. Staff time and identifying. It's in there. It's in my Sweet 16 for a reason. Another big one that gets people in trouble, especially on the reimbursement grants, keep invoices separated if it doesn't go to the funding. So, going back to my playground story, the one that's going to be amazing when it's in, should be for $500,000. Half of the stuff isn't covered under the grant. So, and half the stuff goes to a different grant. We have a phase A, we have a phase B, and we have a phase C with outlines of what pays for what. My invoices, told the agency, needs to show up. Phase A, phase B, phase C. So when I submit phase C to that agency, they only see what they wanted to pay for. B only sees what they wanted to pay for, and everybody is happy and not sitting there going, what did you spend my money on that I did not say you could? So keep invoices separated. Believe me, it happens more often than you think, so you're not being a pain when you ask for them to do this. Have the plan, and keep in mind some grants play well together, some do not. It is also okay to walk away from one that turns out is not a benefit for you. I've had some of those show up in the past, and you look at it and you go, this is not worth me wasting my time to report on. This is not worth me wasting my staff's time, and it has too many strings attached. So I'm going to let you guys ask me a whole bunch of questions. This is how you find me. If you have not guessed, you can type in red lips pretty much anywhere, and my beautiful face will pop up in some iteration. So